I was plastered all over the campus confession wall. Pictures, captions, the works, accusing me of being a gold digger, a manipulative green tea bitch. I scrolled through the comments, a sickening uniformity to them. Finally, someone sees her true colors. I always knew she was fake. Too bad she has so many simps protecting her. Stay strong, brothers. Only a few dissenting voices, the so-called simps, tried to defend me. Goddess, just let me love you, okay? Let me share my life with you? Ignore these haters. It sucks being obsessed with someone, but it can be sweet too. Seeing news about the goddess, even bad news, makes me happy. Predictably, these comments ignited fresh firestorms, with legions piling on to wake them up. The evidence against me was damning, visually at least. There was a photo of me getting out of a sleek Lamborghini, another of me hopping into a roaring McLaren, one accepting a distinctive orange Hermes box. They even had screenshots of vaguely flirtatious chat logs with a few of my admirers, private conversations. How did they even get those? Still, I had to admit, scrolling past the vitriol, I looked damn good. Even caught from unflattering angles mid-action, there was an undeniable beauty to the images. TSK. Smirking slightly, I exited the app, only to be greeted by a new WeChat notification pop-up. 18301 McLaren. Let's break up. This was Julian, my only official boyfriend. How could he be so cold, so abrupt? A strange sour ache bloomed in my chest. My fingers tightened convulsively around the strap of my designer handbag. Looking up, I noticed pairs and trios of girls passing by, casting sideways glances, whispering behind their hands. The realization hit me with sudden, unpleasant force. My fan club, my network of admirers, was collapsing. I was finished. The others didn't matter as much, but Julian was different. This couldn't happen. Squaring my shoulders, I marched straight towards the men's dormitory complex. I called Julian's number. He rejected the call 3 times. On the 4th try, he finally answered, his voice low and tight with irritation. What do you want? Come down. I'm outside your building. Get lost. The words stabbed deeper than the lewd, mocking or disgusted stares from the guys milling around the dormitory entrance. I took a shaky breath. Even breakups should be done face to face. I'll wait. I heard the distinct sound of something heavy crashing in the background through the phone, followed by a sharp, angry curse before the line went dead. I didn't have to wait long. Julian appeared, striding towards me. Broad shoulders, long legs tapering to a narrow waist, flawless skin, striking features. His dark eyes swept over me dismissively, hands shoved deep into his pockets. He radiated cold indifference and barely suppressed fury. Did you need me to dump you in person? He asked, stopping directly in front of me, his voice laced with ice. A wave of self-pity washed over me. I reached for his sleeve instinctively, but he yanked his arm away sharply. I don't want to break up, I pleaded, my voice trembling slightly. What I feel for you is real. Flirting was a habit, manipulation perhaps part of my nature, but my feelings for him, those were genuine. The harsh fluorescent light of the entranceway bleached the color from his face, making him look almost ethereal. His gaze raked over me slowly, deliberately, before a humorless smirk twisted his lips. He enunciated each word with cruel precision. 183 height. Number 1 desirability drives a McLaren? My breath hitched. No, that's not it, Julian, listen to me, let me explain. I gave you that contact name before I actually fell for you. I just forgot to change it. Julian raised an eyebrow, then lifted a perfectly sculpted index finger to his lips in a silencing gesture. Just get lost, he repeated, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. And don't bother me again. He turned on his heel and walked away, leaving me with nothing but the view of his retreating back, cold, unforgiving, yet infuriatingly attractive. Hey, Campus Belgiang. A crude voice broke the tense silence. So, I don't have a McLaren, but I've got a VW. Seeing as you're available now, how about 3,000 a night for my company? A pimply-faced idiot leered at me, reaching out as if to grab my arm. Laughter erupted from the surrounding guys, while nearby girls shot me looks of utter contempt. I'd always considered myself strong, self-sufficient, someone who didn't care about others' opinions. But in that moment, faced with Julian's rejection and the crowd's derision, I felt the crushing weight of social judgment. Julian's cruelty had wounded me. This public humiliation was the final straw. The practiced, charming smile I usually wore vanished completely. Fighting back the icy chill spreading through me, I yanked open my purse, pulled out a thick wad of cash, and threw it squarely in the guy's face. Get lost. I spat, my voice shaking with rage. Are you even worthy? Even in the age of digital payments, I always carried a significant amount of cash. Partly for the tactile pleasure of it, partly for the strange sense of security it provided. Having delivered my retort, I turned and walked away, but the confident stride I'd arrived with had deserted me. Back in the dorm, I scrubbed off my makeup, changed into comfortable pajamas, and was about to crawl into bed when my roommates, Chloe and Maya, returned. Seeing my pale face and red-rimmed eyes, they rushed over. Stella, are you okay? Chloe asked tentatively. We know you're not really like that. What they said on the wall. Don't let it get to you. I turned, sitting on the edge of my bed, and looked at them frankly. But I am, I admitted quietly. I am that kind of person. Seeing the surprised, slightly flustered expressions on their faces actually made me feel a fraction better. Julian, that jerk, wasn't even as understanding as my roommates. Well, partly true, partly not, I clarified, managing a small shrug. My family really is loaded, I wasn't faking that part. Want to go out? My treat. Let's get drunk. Isn't drowning your sorrows what you do after a breakup? Rich people liking money and other rich people, was that so wrong? Did I have to pretend to be Mother Teresa and date someone penniless to be considered a goddess? Chloe and Maya exchanged glances, then grinned. Okay. As we walked out together, I noticed the pointed stares and whispers weren't just directed at me anymore. My roommates were catching the shrapnel too. A wave of shame washed over me. Maybe you guys shouldn't. It's fine. Come on. Chloe bumped my shoulder playfully, and Maya laughed in agreement. At the bar, I booked a private booth. Chloe and Maya looked around with wide-eyed curiosity, clearly not regulars in places like this. My phone buzzed with a notification. 18500 Portia. Sister, I'm right behind you. I turned and saw Leo waving, his boyish grin flashing twin dimples even in the club's dim, suggestive lighting. I raised my glass in a dismissive salute before turning back around. Leo was just a fish in my pond, not even someone I'd granted official status. He wasn't throwing a tantrum. What right did Julian have to be so self-righteous and dump me? After downing 2 strong cocktails, I felt a warm presence slide into the booth beside me. Glancing sideways, I saw Leo propping his chin on his hand, smiling at me. Sister, are you upset about that confession wall post? It's fine, I slurred slightly, the alcohol hitting harder than I expected. I'm happy to be one of Sister's fish, Leo said, his smile widening, almost smug. So don't be sad, okay? Of course he wasn't upset. Leo probably had a massive pond of his own, filled with fish he actually interacted with, not just admired from afar. Why would he care about being one of mine? I swirled the blue liquid in my glass. Later, I murmured, leaning closer. I'll transfer you the cash equivalent for the gifts. Leo blinked. What are you doing? Cleaning up my image, I stated simply, so I could win Julian back. Why did I have to like him so damn much? Checking my watch, I realized it was getting late. I nudged Chloe and Maya. Time to go. I ignored Leo, who was still staring at me, looking bewildered. On the walk back, I pinned the chats of all 7 fish, everyone except Julian, to the top of my WeChat list and started calculating the value of the gifts I'd received. Returning luxury items wasn't practical. Cash transfers were cleaner. Seriously, what was the big deal? Other girls received milk tea and flowers. I received watches and handbags. Was my taste level the crime? Fine, maybe accepting gifts wasn't great either. I drafted a group message explaining my intention to return the cash value. As I was about to send it, I noticed 18101 Lamborghini had already blocked me. My mind cleared instantly. That was Ethan, right? Julian's neighbor, same department. Was he pissed off knowing he was just a fish while Julian had been the official boyfriend? Maybe offering more money would smooth things over? Seemed like a plan. I deal with him tomorrow in person. A personal touch always showed more sincerity. Fish were generally easy to manage, low maintenance, easily placated. Money transferred instantly via Alipay. No awkward refusals needed. They appreciated the gesture, the acknowledgement. I sent off the transfers one by one. 182.99, Ferrari 66,666 yuan. 186.00, Maybach, 88,888 yuan. Scrolling down the list until only Ethan remained. The next day, I dressed deliberately plainly short-sleeved t-shirt, long pants, a baseball cap pulled low aiming for a look that screamed respectable and harmless. Then I headed back to the men's dorm. I flagged down a studious-looking guy with glasses. "Excuse me, could you possibly ask Ethan Joe from room 207 to come down? I need to talk to him." The guy nodded eagerly, but other students lingering nearby overheard and started snickering, not even bothering to lower their voices. I caught snippets. My reputation was ruined. Julian dumped me. Now I was crawling back to Ethan. Did I think rich guys were stupid? The comments were crude and hurtful. Ethan hadn't appeared yet, but Julian emerged from the building. His face, usually pale and smooth as jade, instantly hardened when he saw me. "Didn't I tell you to stop bothering me?" His tone was harsh, grating. The words, combined with the onlooker's mockery, pricked at my already frayed nerves. My own expression turned cold. "I'm not here to see you." Just those few words. The effect was immediate. Julian's face went from cold to thunderous, darker than mine had been. Raw anger and irritation flared visibly in his captivating eyes. His lips pressed into a thin white line. Without another word, he spun around and stalked off. As I stared after Julian's retreating back, a shadow fell over me. Ethan's voice, smooth and melodious, broke the spell. "Did you need something?" Pulled back to the present, I turned to face him, tilting my chin up slightly to see him from under the brim of my cap. White t-shirt, black pants, white sneakers, minimalist attire that somehow amplified his striking looks. Anyone else might feel inadequate standing next to him. Not me. "I came to pay you back," I said, tugging my cap lower, avoiding his intense gaze. Those eyes always seemed full of unspoken emotion. For the gifts, returning them isn't practical, so cash value seems best. "No need." Ethan's voice was impassive. He turned to go back inside, but I shot out a hand and grabbed his wrist. The watching crowd murmured, interpreting my action as desperate, shameless clinging. Ethan turned back, waiting. I pressed on, lowering my voice slightly. "I really should pay you back. People will talk." Honestly, their talk didn't bother me that much anymore. The initial sting of public shame had faded. People always gossiped about me. Before it was envy, now it was scorn. It made little difference. But projecting vulnerability now might convince Ethan to accept the money. Owing him felt complicated. He glanced down at my hand gripping his wrist. I followed his gaze. His skin was incredibly fair. My fingers against it seemed almost fused, like they belonged there. I snatched my hand back as if burned. Only then did Ethan speak, his voice gentle but edged with faint mockery. "Scared now, are you?" A silken threat, the kind that cut deep. The retort died on my lips as he interrupted smoothly. "What is money to you, really? This isn't a simple transaction settling a debt. You should just keep owing me." With that, he turned and disappeared back into the dormitory, leaving me fuming. "Asshole. Owe you? Like hell. Keep your damn money." I dug my nails into my palm, trying to quell the anger, and started walking towards the cafeteria. As my temper cooled, rationality returned. I did need to settle this debt. Otherwise, Julian, with his possessive streak, would never truly forgive me. Speak of the devil. Julian was walking towards me, presumably finished with lunch, casually holding a bottle of mineral water. As he approached the nearby trash can, he didn't just toss the bottle in, he practically slammed it, the plastic crashing loudly against the metal bin. The noise made me flinch. I looked up, meeting his eyes. They were dark, turbulent pools of emotion. He looked down at me, his expression pure arrogance. "So, Ethan rejected you too? Too? What did he mean to?" Rage surged, hot and blinding. I wanted to slap that smug look off his beautiful, infuriating face. "Go to hell." I snapped, my voice rising, forgetting completely my plan to win him back, to start over. I pushed past him angrily. By the time I realized my mistake and looked back, Julian was gone. Regret washed over me, sharp and painful, followed by a familiar wave of self-pity. My eyes stung. I was supposed to be the master manipulator, the green tea expert. Growing up, I'd always been coddled, admired. I never needed to lose my temper. When Julian and I were together before, I knew he had a temper, but he'd always controlled it for me, swallowed his pride, indulged me. Now he changed. Men. So fickle. After agonizing for a while, I opened WeChat, intending to message Julian. Seeing the contact name, 18301 McLaren made my cheeks burn. Quickly changed it to his actual name, Julian Sue, before typing. I went to see Ethan to give him back money for the gifts. He'd blocked me. As I hit send, a system notification popped up. You are not friends with this user. Please send a friend request. He deleted me. A suffocating mix of anger and hurt tightened my chest. Fine. I changed the contact name back. He didn't deserve a real name. Jerk. After forcing down some food, I walked back towards the dorm, cap pulled low. Ahead of me, 3 girls were walking slowly, blocking the narrow path. Annoyed, I followed behind them, inadvertently overhearing their conversation. Julian finally dumped that green tea bitch. Yvonne, you should totally go for him now. The girl on the left urged the one in the middle. Yvonne protested shyly, and the 3 huddled closer, whispering conspiratorially. Trying to steal my man? Talking trash about me? My patience snapped. Excuse me, I said coldly. The 3 girls startled, moving aside instinctively. When they saw it was me, their expressions soured. I glanced at Yvonne. She looked vaguely familiar. Right, she had approached Julian once when we were together. He'd shut her down coldly, but I'd noted her prettiness. Yvonne Jiang, that was her name. Did she really think she had a chance just because Julian and I were fighting? Hilarious. I wasn't done pursuing him yet. She could get in line. The anger over being deleted morphed into territorial possessiveness. I hurried back to the dorm, borrowed Chloe's phone, and dialed Julian's number. Hello. His voice, lazy and slightly rough, traveled through the phone, sending shivers down my spine. When he wasn't being deliberately cruel, he was dangerously captivating. It's me, Stella Jiang. Don't hang up. The words tumbled out in a rush, afraid he'd recognize my voice and block this number too. He was definitely capable of it. What is it? His tone grew heavier, instantly wary. I could picture his frown, the impatient tightening of his jaw. The familiar ache returned to my chest. I gripped the back of Chloe's chair for support. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to speak calmly. I went to see Ethan to return the value of his gifts. He was the only one left. Everyone else has been paid back. Can you forgive me? Just this once? I like you, Julian. I want to pursue you properly. Silence stretched from the other end. My heart pounded nervously against my ribs. I heard his breathing deepen slightly before he spoke, his voice dripping with mock politeness, twisting the knife. Who are you again? What makes you think you're worthy? Sister, perhaps you should stick to managing your fish pond and stop bothering me, He hung up. Cleanly. Without hesitation. I didn't even bother trying to call back to see if Chloe's number was now blocked too. Humiliation. Shame. But mostly regret and a deep, aching sadness. I covered my face with my hands, tears finally spilling over. Silent at first, then quiet. Sobs, escalating into muffled whimpers. He said he liked me, didn't he? I like him so much. Why can't he forgive me? I can change. 2 fish, 3 fish, 7. Felt right at the time. But if Julian hated it, I could be happy with just 1. I only ever gave him the official title anyway. Chloe was the only one in the room. She rushed over, kneeling beside my chair, taking my hands, murmuring comforting words. Through blurred vision, I looked at her earnest, worried face, the plea tearing from my throat, directed at no one and everyone. I really know I was wrong. Can't I be forgiven just once? Chloe squeezed my hands tighter, nodding vehemently. Yes, of course you can. Seeing her frown of concern only made me feel worse. I bowed my head. My parents, they're always busy working. They never cared, just gave me money. I just like feeling wanted, loved. I can change. I swear. Just Julian, he's enough. I really will change. Crying must burn a lot of energy. Eventually, consciousness faded and I slumped forward, falling asleep right there in the chair. When I woke up later, someone had draped a blanket over me. Looking up, I met Chloe's sympathetic gaze. We shared a small, understanding smile. The earlier breakdown felt like a distant dream, unspoken between us. Pathetic people often have hateful qualities. I'd been hateful enough. I didn't need pity. My phone rang. It was Ethan. He hadn't blocked me after all. Surprised, I answered, saying his name aloud. A dry chuckle came through the line, laced with irony. Clearly, he'd noted my lack of initiative in contacting him. As my cheeks warmed, he got to the point. Math modeling competition. Be on my team. But I already promised Julian, I replied automatically. Ethan's voice remained smooth, gentle, but with that familiar undercurrent that always unsettled me. Did you? Is he still teaming with you? I just glanced at the submitted list. Looked like he partnered with that Zhang guy from your math department. My heart plummeted, then slowly, painfully climbed back up. The sensation was deeply unpleasant. Oh, so why ask me? Is this my way of paying back my debt? Heh, a soft scoff. Is being on my team such a hardship? Paying back a debt. I couldn't fathom how Ethan managed to blend refined politeness with such cutting sarcasm. Fine. Unblock me on WeChat. I'll send you my details. After he hung up, I slumped back in my chair, typing out my student ID and contact info. My mind wandered. Julian, you bastard. I was one of the top students in the math department. Teaming with me was beneath him now? That unprofessional, petty jerk. Ethan at least recognized talent. On the day of the competition, I walked into lab room 418. Several heads turned as I entered, but most quickly looked away, feigning indifference. Only Julian reacted. Visibly, his lips tightening, a clear sign of displeasure. I glanced over at his team. Surprisingly, it wasn't Zhang Tong, but another classmate, Vincent Wang. I found Ethan and our third teammate, Ryan Zhang, and sat down, booting up my laptop. I thought you said he teamed with Zhang? I said Zhang something, Ethan replied smoothly, his eyes fixed on his own screen, the blue light casting ethereal shadows on his handsome face. Didn't see clearly. Must have misremembered. As soon as the competition started, Ethan downloaded the problem set, then went next door to room 417 to print 3 copies, handing one to Ryan and me. Hello. Buzz of discussion filled the lab as teams started brainstorming. Our corner remained conspicuously silent, each of us focused on our own initial analysis. Any initial thoughts? Ethan finally asked, leaning slightly towards me, breaking the strained silence. I nodded. A few ideas. I can try building the initial model. Senior is truly impressive, Ethan murmured with a soft laugh. It sounded like praise, but knowing him, it was likely laced with subtle mockery. I ignored him, picking up my pen and starting to sketch out equations, simultaneously searching for relevant research papers online. Hours blurred together. Want to take a break? It's 2 a.m. Ethan's voice, the first in a long while, startled me. I looked up, rubbing my eyes. The lab had emptied considerably. In a bit. Almost got this part figured out. It was 8 a.m. when I finally handed my completed models and analysis over to Ethan. I was so exhausted my eyelids felt glued together. I barely had the strength to stand. I slumped forward, resting my head on the cool table surface. Got asleep for a bit. AC is cold. Ethan produced a folded jacket from his bag and draped it over my shoulders. I blinked in surprise. Why did you bring a jacket? I get cold easily. His long fingers tapped lightly on the desk, his gaze still fixed on the papers I'd given him. Through slitted eyes, I took in his lean frame. Yeah, I can see that, I mumbled. I thought I heard him chuckle softly. Oh, you'll find out more later. When I woke up again, sunlight streamed through the windows. My phone showed it was already noon. My whole body ached. Okay, I'm heading back to shower. Ethan pushed a takeout container towards me. Eat first. It's still warm. I accepted it gratefully. Halfway through the meal, I remembered my resolve not to accept undue favors. How much do I owe you? Ethan's long eyes narrowed slightly as he glanced at me, a rare flash of arrogance crossing his features. This little amount? Just eat. His tone, his attitude, it was eerily reminiscent of Julian. I was so taken aback I couldn't even speak. I finished the food quickly, tossed the container, and headed for the door. The sun outside was blindingly bright, so the blinds in the lab building hallway were drawn shut. The overhead fluorescent lights cast a dim, eerie pallor, making the empty corridor feel silent and unsettling. Despite it being daytime, a prickle of unease ran down my spine. I quickened my pace, wanting to get out into the sunlight. Then I heard familiar footsteps behind me. Turning, I saw Julian. I stopped instinctively, but Julian strode past me without a word, continuing down the hall. I stared after his retreating back, frustration bubbling up inside me. What was his problem now? Before I could decide what to do, he stopped and glanced back over his shoulder. Not following? So he knew I was scared of the creepy hallway? Maybe he wasn't a complete jerk after all. Maybe he did still care, otherwise why bother? Heartened slightly, I hurried to catch up, falling into step beside him. His voice when he spoke was dripping with sarcasm. Trying to hook Ethan now? Weren't you the one who refused to team with me? I shot back, annoyed, glaring up at him. Julian's expression flickered. Surprise, then a strange, twisted kind of irony. His jaw clenched. Fuck, he muttered under his breath, then added, with grudging admiration, you really know how to push buttons. He didn't say another word, just increased his pace, leaving me behind again. Realizing this was probably about Ethan again, my mind started racing, forgetting the creepy hallway entirely as I hurried outside. Standing in the warm, reassuring sunlight, a conclusion formed. Ethan was making a play for me, and Julian was jealous. Good. Let him be jealous. Ethan was efficient. By the time I returned showered and refreshed, he already had a working code framework. Ryan was diligently drafting the paper, incorporating our findings. The math modeling competition concluded smoothly, with our team submitting a solid entry. A relieved buzz filled the lab as teams packed up. I stretched, ready to leave, but Ethan stopped me. Alex Yuan is organizing a KTV night for everyone to unwind. You coming? If Ethan was going, Julian would definitely be there. Sure, I agreed without hesitation. The KTV room was dim and hazy, thick with the smell of stale smoke and spilled beer. Our group of 9 crowded around a low table, launching into drinking games. Ethan acted as the dealer, shuffling and distributing cards. Ace and 9 had to perform a forfeit dictated by player 5. Refusal meant downing 3 shots of whiskey. I watched Ethan's nimble fingers as he dealt. When I saw my card was a 9, I leaned towards him suspiciously. Did you rig that? His shuffling had looked slightly off, though I couldn't pinpoint how. Ethan simply showed me his own card, a 7. No words, no denial, just letting the cards speak for themselves. Player 5, grinning triumphantly, revealed his card. Okay, first round. 9 has to sit on Ace's lap and feed him a pocky stick mouth to mouth. Nothing too crazy, right? Julian flipped over his card. Ace. A wave of excited chatter filled the booth, abruptly cutting off as I revealed my 9. The air grew thick with awkwardness. Everyone knew about Julian's and my tumultuous history. Player 5, thankfully possessing some social grace, quickly tried to salvage the mood. Hey, perfect. A handsome guy and a beautiful girl. Meant to be. Honestly, I wasn't entirely opposed. I flashed the guy a smile, picked up a pocky stick and walked over to Julian, meeting his intense gaze. His lips were pressed into a thin line, his dark eyes turbulent with emotion. He looked like he was silently questioning if I'd do this with any guy who drew the ace. My hand, halfway to resting on his shoulder for balance, instinctively retreated. He was going to refuse me. Publicly. Realizing this, I popped the pocky stick into my own mouth and reached for the whiskey bottle instead. Our hands collided as we both reached for it simultaneously. I'll drink, we said in unison. My fingers tightened on the glass I'd grabbed, but Julian snatched the bottle away first. He shot me a look dripping with sarcasm. Why don't you just sit back down, senior? I'll drink for you. Fueled by a mix of anger and embarrassment, I grabbed an empty glass. Wouldn't want to inconvenience you. I'll drink one too. I slammed my 9-card face up on the table, poured a generous measure of whiskey, and downed it in one go. Despite the underlying tension, the fact that both Julian and I drank seemed to break the ice, and the party atmosphere kicked into high gear. The games continued, getting wilder. Strangely, I never drew the ace or 9 again. Thinking back, it had to be Ethan. He must have stacked the deck, knowing Julian's temper would lead to a humiliating scene for me, so he deliberately engineered it. I narrowed my eyes at Ethan, sitting beside me looking perfectly innocent. That manipulative snake. Trying to out-green tea me? Eventually, the games devolved into the classic ever-popular truth or dare. Given the recent gossip, it was inevitable. Soon enough, the question was directed at me. Was the stuff on the confession wall true? Half true, half false, I replied with a nonchalant shrug. But rich people have daughters too, you know? Being accused of scamming guys for money when I came from wealth myself. That stung more than the green tea label. My dry humor seemed to satisfy their curiosity for the moment. The spotlight moved on. I watched the ensuing antics until my own dare card came up. Lightly kiss the throat of the person to your left. I froze, staring at the card. Ethan. Again. It had to be him manipulating the game. I looked up, meeting his eyes. They were warm, smiling, almost gentle. He picked up his glass, feigning reluctance, his expression a picture of thoughtful consideration. This might be awkward for Senior. I can just drink instead. Awkward? No. I was just amazed by his seamless performance. What brand of hypocrite was he? I reached out, pressing my hand lightly on his wrist, forcing a smile. How could I let you suffer? Leaning in, I brushed my lips against the side of his throat, a fleeting touch, pulling back immediately. As I straightened up, my gaze caught his, and I saw the slight, involuntary bob of his sharp, sexy Adam's apple. A chorus of whistles and catcalls erupted around us. I withdrew my hand and sat back, taking a long sip of water to cover my slight unease, discreetly glancing towards Julian. He was watching me. His stare was intense, dark, burning. The fury in his eyes, the raw jealousy. It felt like he was on the verge of exploding, ready to either drag me out and throttle me or beat Ethan senseless. Maybe both. A small smug smile touched my lips. Serves him right. My phone vibrated. It was past 2 a.m. My dad? Calling this late? Confused, I excused myself and stepped out of the noisy booth to answer. Yao Yao, your mother is in town on business. She's fallen ill, admitted to the hospital. Could you go check on her? My stomach clenched at the news of her illness, but suspicion quickly followed. How long has she been here? A long silence answered my question. She'd likely been in the city for days, maybe weeks. A bitter laugh escaped me. Comes to the city where her daughter studies and doesn't even call, doesn't even try to see me. She's too busy, right? Probably working even while sick. I wouldn't want to disturb her. Goodbye. I hung up, listening to the dial tone, then slowly slid down the wall, sinking to the floor in the dimly lit corridor. Why? They had more money than they could ever spend. Why was work always more important? Pulling myself together, I pushed open the door to the booth. Ethan was pouring drinks. He seemed to be the only one who hadn't lost. Any games tonight hadn't had a drop of alcohol. I glanced at my phone, 13 a.m. I quickly walked over, placing my hand over his. I'll drink for him, I announced to the group. Ooh, Senior's worried about Ethan's alcohol allergy. Someone teased. It's mild, he won't die. Yeah, let him drink. It's rare to see Ethan lose. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes crinkling slightly at the corners. What's wrong? Need you to drive me to the hospital later, I murmured, keeping my voice low. So I'll take this for you. Okay, he agreed easily. Our quiet exchange probably looked intimate to the others. Julian slammed his glass down on the table, not hard, but loud enough to make everyone jump. All eyes swiveled towards him, the simmering tension finally boiling over into an undeniable confrontation. His handsome features were tight with anger, eyebrows drawn together, lips thinned. The look he shot me was venomous, laced with mockery. The barely contained rage was palpable. He stared directly at me, his voice dangerously low, dripping with challenge. Senior surely knows the penalty for drinking in place of someone else's double, right? Ethan lost 3 rounds. I met his gaze, grabbed the whiskey bottle, and tilted my chin defiantly. Fine. I'll drink. Julian looked momentarily stunned. The rest of the group, sensing high drama, forgot their fear of his temper and started cheering. Ignoring Julian, I poured glass after glass, downing 6 shots in quick succession. The fiery liquid burned its way down, churning violently in my stomach. I felt instantly nauseous. My alcohol tolerance was decent, but this was too much, too fast. Feeling unsteady, I signaled to Ethan, ready to make our excuses and leave. As I stepped away from the table, my foot slipped. I stumbled. Ethan reacted instantly, his hand shooting out to steady me. His cool fingers landed on the bare skin of my waist where my crop top ended. The unexpected contact, the coolness against my heated skin, felt like an electric shock. I flinched slightly. Ethan seemed to register the contact a second later, his fingers tightening briefly, possessively, before he helped me regain my balance and removed his hand. We had just straightened up, ready to say goodbye, when Julian snatched a cigarette from the pack on the table and flicked it hard, directly at Ethan. Ethan effortlessly batted it away. I whipped my head around to glare at Julian. Our eyes met. The fury was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, raw, undeniable pain, sharp jealousy. His voice was pure venom, as if he wanted to tear me apart. Stella Jiang. You dare walk out of here with him? Any thought I had of explaining, of placating him, vanished. I glanced down at the discarded cigarette, a sarcastic retort forming on my lips. But Ethan, anticipating the escalation, placed a hand gently on my shoulder, nudging me forward. He addressed the room, his voice smooth, charming, effortlessly diffusing the tension. Apologies, everyone. We have some private matters to attend to. Tonight's on me. Please enjoy yourselves. He steered me towards the door, smoothly navigating us out of the explosive situation he had likely helped create. Once outside in the cool night air, I pulled away slightly. Thanks for the save. But let me pay. It was my issue. Ethan dropped his hand from my shoulder, his gaze distant as he looked down the street. No problem. Consider it repayment for you drinking all that whiskey for me. Wasn't that my taxi fare? I countered, looking up at him. He met my gaze and smiled. A slow, captivating curve of his lips that transformed his already beautiful features into something truly mesmerizing. We reached the front counter. Ignoring Ethan's protests, I scanned the QR code and paid the entire bill. He leaned against the counter. Beside me, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Well then, I'll be sure to tell them to thank Senior properly for her generosity. The KTV was close to campus, so we'd walked. Now Ethan led me to his car, the Lamborghini. As I settled into the passenger seat, leaning my head back to try and clear the alcohol fuzz, he offered me a bottle of water. Drink some of this. I took it gratefully, gulping it down as he pulled smoothly out into the deserted streets, the powerful engine a low growl cutting through the pre-dawn silence. After a while waiting at a red light, Ethan broke the silence. What happened back there? He asked casually. I sighed, rubbing my temples. It's nothing. My mom, she's here on business, got sick. Just going to check on her. Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't comment further, simply adjusting the navigation. A few blocks before the hospital, he pulled over. Should probably pick up some fruit or something for your mother. I started to refuse, then stopped. Fine. Social niceties. I'd treat him to a proper meal later to repay the favor. After getting the room number, Ethan and I walked in to find my mother, predictably, hunched over a laptop working. Hello, Auntie. Ethan greeted her politely, placing the fruit basket and supplements he'd bought on the bedside table. My mother looked up from her screen, managing a tight, unfamiliar smile. Thank you. Years of being a high-powered executive had seemingly eroded her ability to express warmth. As I moved to sit down, her sharp gaze landed on me. Her tone was instantly critical. Middle of the night, reeking of alcohol. What have you been doing? I took a slow breath. The math modeling competition just finished. Went out to celebrate with the team. How did the competition go? Results aren't out yet. Shouldn't you have some idea of how you performed? Her voice rose slightly, showing no sign of illness. How should I know? Before I could snap back, Ethan interjected smoothly. Auntie, Senior and I were teammates. I think we did quite well. We hope we won't disappoint your expectations. My mother's expression softened slightly. And your name is? Ethan Zhou, he replied, his voice calm, respectful, yet confident. Ethan as in Ethan Allen, Zhou as in the dynasty. She proceeded to chat with Ethan, her tone noticeably warmer than it ever was with me. Relief washed over me. At least I didn't have to engage, didn't have to argue. When Ethan and I finally left, I felt the tension drain away. You're pretty amazing, I admitted, teasing him slightly. Even my mother likes you. Ethan pressed the elevator button, then turned his head, his gaze meeting mine. Depends on who I'm dealing with, he said simply. No smile, no inflection, just a statement that hung in the air, heavy with ambiguity. I didn't respond. After Ethan dropped me off, I walked towards the dorm entrance through the pre-dawn gloom. Suddenly my foot caught on something. An outstretched leg deliberately placed in my path from the shadows. Which psycho hides in a corner tripping people before sunrise? Bracing for impact, expecting scraped knees and humiliation, I was suddenly yanked backwards, caught firmly against a hard chest. I looked up. Julian. He had one arm clamped around my waist, the other pressing my shoulder against the cool brick wall. In the faint glow of a distant streetlight, I could see the dark smudges of exhaustion under his eyes, but his lean frame radiated a coiled energy, a volatile mix of weariness and raw intensity. He lowered his head, burying his face in the curve of my neck, his warm breath ghosting over my skin, intimate and scorching. The unexpected closeness sent shivers down my spine. I instinctively recoiled, my cheek bumping against his. "Antiseptic," he murmured, his voice muffled against my skin, surprisingly soft. "You went to the hospital?" Relief softened his tone, reminding me achingly of how he used to sound when we were together. His sudden gentleness disarmed me. Forgetting his recent cruelty, his possessiveness, I found myself explaining, my voice taking on a pleading, almost childish tone. "My mom was sick, 住院了, hospitalized. I couldn't get a taxi this late, that's why I asked Ethan." The explanation seemed to work. The tension in his frame eased slightly. He lifted his head, that familiar arrogant tilt returning to his features, though his eyes remained intense. His hand moved from my shoulder to gently cup my earlobe, his touch possessive, almost rough. "You actually came back," he murmured, a hint of dark satisfaction in his voice. Seeing that look, that hint of the old Julian, made my heart soften, but the memory of him throwing the cigarette, wanting to tear me apart in the KTV, sparked my defiance. "And what if I hadn't?" I challenged, tilting my chin up. "I'd kill you," he stated flatly, his fingers tightening on my earlobe, pulling me closer until my body was flush against his. He said it with such calm certainty, I didn't doubt him for a second. Wisely, I abandoned the provocation. I reached up, grabbing the hem of his t-shirt. "Well, I did come back. Is there a reward?" A low chuckle vibrated in his chest. He released me, stepping back slightly, patting my shoulder dismissively. "Go sleep." My reward was permission to sleep? I stared at him, momentarily speechless, then burst out laughing in sheer exasperation. I shot him one last glare and turned away. "Keep playing your games, asshole." Julian must have been pushed to his limit. Seizing the opportunity, I sent him a friend request on WeChat immediately. He accepted. Before I could even type anything, a message popped up from him. "Screenshot your contacts page. Let me see the nickname." I'd intended to just use his name this time, but on impulse, fueled by a mix of defiance and affection, I changed his contact name to Hubby and sent the screenshot. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then a voice message arrived. His voice, lazy, husky, incredibly seductive, filled my ears. "Have some shame, Stella." Despite the mocking words, I could clearly hear the underlying amusement, the hint of possessiveness, even fondness. I played it back twice, my face burning. Damn him. How could he be so infuriatingly attractive? Julian was heading to Hangzhou for an ACM programming competition. Since my family lived in Hangzhou, and sensing the thaw in his attitude, I decided to push my luck, accelerate the reconciliation. I told him I needed a ride home and asked if he could save me a seat on their team bus. Surprisingly, he agreed. Humming happily, I was packing my suitcase when Vanessa, my roommate who'd been staying off campus for weeks, unexpectedly walked in. She paused, seeing my luggage. "Going home?" she asked coolly. "Sort of," I replied vaguely, zipping up my bag. We weren't exactly friends. I dragged my suitcase towards the campus gate. From a distance, I spotted Julian leaning against a wall, hands in pockets, head down, engrossed in his phone, baseball cap casting a shadow over his face. He looked almost delicate in the bright sunlight. As if sensing my approach, he looked up, took my suitcase without a word, stowed it in the bus's luggage compartment, then jerked his chin towards the bus door. "Get on." "You first," I mumbled, nervously fiddling with the hem of his shirt. It was one thing to chase him relentlessly, quite another to brazenly crash the computer science team bus as a math major. Suddenly, I felt incredibly self-conscious. Julian glanced down at my hand clutching his shirt, then up at my flushed face. A slow smirk spread across his lips, making my cheeks burn hotter. "Feeling shy now?" His tone was mocking, teasing, thoroughly annoying. Why did he always have to provoke me? I started to pull my hand away, ready to board the bus alone, but he grabbed my wrist, pulling me along with him as he stepped onto the bus. Hard. Exterior soft heart? My mood instantly lifted. Ignoring the blatant curiosity and knowing glances from the entire busload of computer science students. The seat Julian had saved with his bag was directly behind Ethan. Catching the icy glare Ethan shot me as we sat down, I had to suppress a smile. Maybe Julian wasn't entirely oblivious to subtle power plays after all. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, my head was resting comfortably on Julian's shoulder. His cap shaded his face, softening his usually sharp features. With his eyes closed, he looked less aggressive, almost gentle. "Stop staring," he murmured without opening his eyes, his voice raspy with sleep, carrying an undertone of something else, desire. My gaze flickered to the tips of his ears. Definitely pink. I sat up abruptly, turning to face the window, my own cheeks warming. This trip was definitely worth it. I followed Julian to the hotel where the team was staying. He couldn't quite suppress the upward quirk of his lips. "Not going home?" I leaned closer, pitching my voice low and deliberately provocative. "Why do you think I came? My family doesn't live in this district. If I went straight home, you wouldn't get to see me." Julian scoffed. "Like I care. See, total jerk." Just as I was about to retort, Ethan strolled past, pulling his suitcase. "Senior mentioned treating me to dinner," he said, smoothly, addressing me but clearly intending for Julian to hear. "Since we're in Hangzhou now, perhaps you could fulfill your host duties? Talk about perfect timing." "She's not going." Julian's voice was tight, strained, clearly furious. I turned to look at him, meeting his dark, possessive gaze. He held his chin high, radiating pure arrogance. "Well, I do owe him dinner. Shouldn't I pay back the favor? I'll go with you." "And who are you to me?" I countered sweetly. "Why would you come with me to treat my guest?" I was just testing him. Julian narrowed his eyes, gave a short, sharp laugh and stalked off towards the elevators. Damn it. He was completely unmanageable when provoked. Turning back to Ethan, I saw a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. He'd clearly understood the entire exchange. Suddenly, it felt like Ethan understood Julian better than I did. Inside the elevator, the doors closing shut, Ethan finally spoke. "You're really set on chasing him?" I gripped the handle of my suitcase. "Yes. And I'm sorry, Ethan." It felt awkward apologizing after everything. He had, after all, once held a named spot in my collection. The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open. "Why apologize?" Ethan asked, turning to look at me, his gaze unnervingly perceptive. "It's not like Senior can resist my charms either, can she?" Being unable to refuse kindness was a flaw, I knew. One I needed to fix. I lowered my head, mumbling, "Even if I got together with you because you were nice, I'd probably still be tempted by others." "As long as I can handle you," Ethan replied dismissively, his eyebrows slightly arched, before walking away down the corridor. I stared after him, replaying his words. He could handle me? Seriously? Julian, with his explosive temper, had always been the one gritting his teeth, controlling himself, ultimately yielding to me. Did Ethan really think his smooth tactics were superior? Maybe they were. Worth studying, perhaps. I had just unpacked and was about to head out to arrange dinner with Ethan when my phone rang. Seeing the caller ID my mother, I felt a jolt of surprise. I answered cautiously. Her voice was cold, clipped. "I'm at the tea house across the street from your hotel. Room 204. Come now." "Mom? How did you know I was back in Hangzhou?" Her unusual coldness hurt, but curiosity won out. A sharp, sarcastic laugh cut through the line. "I also know about your disgraceful behavior at university. Get over here immediately." The confession wall. My hand tightened on the phone, the blood draining from my face. Panic rising, I hurried out of my room, almost colliding with Julian, who was leaning against the doorframe opposite mine. Seeing my distress, he straightened up, his hand closing gently on my shoulder, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" "Tell Ethan. Tell him I have something urgent, can't do dinner tonight," I mumbled, avoiding his searching gaze, trying to step around him. He must have cooled down, realized he couldn't let me go off alone with Ethan, and come looking for me. Inside room 204 of the tea house, my mother sat rigidly, her face thunderous. As soon as I closed the door, she stood up and slapped me hard across the face. The sting was sharp but somehow expected. "Isn't the money I give you enough? How dare you engage in such promiscuous, shameful behavior at university?" The confession wall wasn't entirely accurate. Realizing the specific nature of her accusation, I stared at her in disbelief. "What exactly do you think I've done?" My direct gaze seemed to disconcert her slightly. She moderated her tone, but her words were still harsh. "I know my own daughter." Relief warred with a deep, aching hurt. The carefully constructed dam holding back years of resentment finally broke. Tears welled up, hot and unstoppable. I didn't want to cry, but I couldn't control it. "What are you crying about? Do you feel wronged?" Besides giving me money and making unreasonable demands about my studies, have you ever cared about me? Actions have consequences. My behavior, isn't it partly your response? My sarcastic retort was cut short by another stinging slap. Stella Jiang, you better reflect on yourself. I gave birth to you, raised you. You have no self-respect, no dignity, and now you dare blame me. My hands clenched into fists. Maybe she was right. Who could I blame? Only myself for being pathetic, for being shameless. Head bowed, silent tears streamed down my face. Her voice continued, cold and final. Don't embarrass us further in this country. I never should have listened to you about studying domestically. Start applying for graduate programs abroad immediately. Get out. I'll have the necessary documents sent to you. She turned, her heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor, and walked out without a backward glance, as if I were trash she was discarding. I didn't understand. How could a mother treat her child like this? Refuse to offer even a scrap of love? My legs gave out. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees, staring blankly ahead as tears continued to fall. I didn't feel sad exactly. Just empty. Hollowed out. The door creaked open again. My heart leaped into my throat. I snapped my head up, expecting my mother's return. But it was Julian. The fight went out of me. I slumped back against the wall. He walked over, crouched down in front of me, and gently, tentatively, used his thumb to wipe away the tears streaming down my face. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Don't cry. Looking at him, his usual sharp edges softened by concern, his gaze lowered, made the knot of misery in my chest tighten further. Did you hear? I whispered. Julian hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but then nodded slowly. Yes. Before I could react, he added softly, it's not your fault. 3 simple words. Somehow they pierced through years of accumulated hurt, years of craving parental love and acceptance. The fragile control I'd maintained shattered completely. I finally broke down, sobbing aloud. Julian's hand was warm on my back. He simply held me, silent, letting me cry myself out. When the sobs finally subsided, leaving me drained and exhausted, he gently helped me to my feet. With the emotional storm past, awareness returned. I was standing here, red-faced and tear-stained, in front of the guy I liked. A wave of self-consciousness washed over me. Do I look awful? Julian's eyes curved into a gentle smile. He reached out, softly pinching my cheek. No. Stella could never look awful. He led me outside, his hand holding mine as we walked aimlessly, letting the cool evening air dry my tears. Are you just pitying me? I asked, needing to. No. We were holding hands again. This felt like a turning point. Sadness was temporary. I'd lived with a lack of love my whole life. But losing Julian, that felt permanent. Hearing my question, Julian's familiar arrogance instantly resurfaced. He raised an eyebrow, shooting me a disdainful look. Do I seem like the type? Then why did you suddenly forgive me? What was the alternative? Let Ethan steal you away. Julian stopped walking, leaning back against a railing, pulling me firmly into his arms. His eyes held a dangerous glint, as if the mere mention of Ethan's name infuriated him. I rested my hands on his shoulders, looking up at him. You're not angry anymore? Still angry, he admitted, his lips curving into a wry smile. But being together doesn't mean you can't start behaving yourself. He pinched my earlobe playfully. Might save me some headaches if you actually tried. He paused, his expression softening again. Besides, he added, his voice dropping low, serious, I won't let my Stella lack love. Psychologists say true love is shown by willingness to share scarce resources. For the rich, time. For the poor, money. For Julian, with his infamous temper, patience. So, does this mean we're back together? Does it need to be official? Or should we do something to make it official? A wicked glint entered his eyes. He leaned closer, whispering something low and suggestive, the words sending heat rushing to my face despite the cool evening breeze. Was he seriously asking me? The way he kissed, fierce and possessive, leaving no room for argument. And he was asking me what we should do. Breathless, I glared at him, but he just covered my eyes with his hand again. Don't look at me like that. Normally I would have demanded why. But his voice was husky, thick with desire. I instantly understood and wisely kept my mouth shut. Come with me tomorrow to treat Ethan to dinner. And who am I to you? Why should I go with you? Julian retorted, instantly throwing my earlier words back at me, clearly not having forgotten. I traced a pattern on the palm of his hand with my fingertip. My boyfriend, I whispered. He went completely still. Glancing up, I saw the tips of his ears were bright red. Back in the hotel, waiting for Julian and his team to return from the competition venue, my mother's promise documents arrived via email. Attached was a curt message. What are you still doing in Hangzhou? The implication was clear. Go back to university, start packing. Knowing her cold, controlling nature didn't stop the familiar pang of hurt. Suppressing the feeling, I opened the files. Supposedly for my review, but she'd already chosen the universities, the programs. All I had to do was apply. The overwhelming sense of being managed, manipulated, washed over me again. I never learned to fight back effectively. Every time I considered it, the guilt of already having so much materially made me feel obligated to obey. Besides, any rare act of defiance was always met with harsher criticism. Easier to just comply. When Julian returned later that evening, he found me slumped on the bed, staring blankly at the laptop screen. He sat beside me, propping himself up on one hand. What's wrong? My mom picked out my grad schools already. I can go with you. Julian's hand gently threaded through my hair. Go with me. Such a simple, profound offer, spoken so casually, yet with utter sincerity. I propped my head on my hand, shaking it slightly. It's only 2 years, and I'm already a year ahead of you academically. We'd still have at least a year of long distance, even if you did come. No fishing allowed while you're abroad, Julian stated suddenly, his hand moving to cup my cheek, his gaze sharp and demanding. I fidgeted with the bedspread, unable to resist pushing his buttons just a little. You didn't seem to mind before. I didn't know what you were really like before, he retorted instantly. Then his eyes darkened as he processed my implication. What? Are you actually planning on it? Before I could hastily backtrack, assure him I wouldn't, his mouth was on mine. Later, amidst the tangled sheets and heated skin, everything felt wonderfully right. Except perhaps for my breathless, ill-advised taunt. Ethan said he could handle me. Guess you're just not up to it. Julian then proceeded to demonstrate quite thoroughly that he could indeed handle me. Very much so. I was the one left utterly spent. Looking at my reflection the next morning languid, well-loved, I had to shake my head at Julian's insistence on treating Ethan to dinner. Tonight. Vindictive? Maybe. But definitely effective. Who said guys with bad tempers couldn't be calculating? They just defaulted to anger first. Julian held my hand tightly as we went downstairs. Seeing Ethan waiting in the lobby, his fingers tightened almost painfully. I followed his gaze. Ethan sat lounging in an armchair, legs crossed, bathed in the warm golden light of the hotel lobby. He did look undeniably captivating, magnetic. As if sensing our approach, Ethan looked up, his gaze briefly flicking to our joined hands. His expression flickered almost imperceptibly before smoothing back into polite neutrality as he stood. Perhaps because Ethan remained impeccably behaved throughout the meal, Julian managed to maintain a semblance of civility. It wasn't until after I'd paid the bill that Ethan gently touched my shoulder. Senior, could we talk privately for a moment? I glanced back at Julian, whose brow was furrowed with displeasure. Suppressing a smile, I nodded to Ethan. Okay. We stepped outside, standing under the soft glow of a nearby street lamp. Julian leaned against a pillar a short distance away, watching us intently, creating a slightly bizarre, charged tableau. So you're together? Ethan asked quietly, breaking the silence, his voice as smooth as ever, but with a faint edge of irony. A wave of unexpected shyness washed over me. I fiddled with the clasp of my purse. Yes. He accepted me. Ethan didn't reply immediately. I looked up, meeting his eyes, and saw a flicker of raw emotion I'd never witnessed before. I didn't know him well, not really. He kept his true feelings so carefully guarded. But this looked undeniably like hurt. The sight tugged at my conscience. You're a great guy, Ethan, I said softly. But feelings, they don't always make sense. And Julian, his temper, his jealousy. They're awful, I know. But the fact that he lets me talk to you, that he doesn't try to forbid it, even though it clearly kills him, that restraint paradoxically, makes me feel more secure than your easygoing charm ever could. Ethan listened, then gave a small wry smile. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair that the evening breeze had loosened behind my ear. He straightened up, shoving his hands in his pockets. "All right," he murmured, the sound almost lost as he turned and walked away, leaving behind only the echo of his quiet resignation. "What are you looking at?" Julian was beside me instantly, his arm possessively around my shoulder, his fingers immediately retucking the strand of hair Ethan had just touched. "Just feeling a momentary pang of regret for 18101 Lamborghini," I teased, leaning into him. Julian's temper flared instantly. He gave a cold laugh and, mindful only that the street was relatively deserted, backed me against the wall, his kiss fierce, almost punishing. It wasn't really a kiss, it was biting, staking a claim. He pulled back, breathless, pinning me with his gaze. "Still feeling regret?" I couldn't speak, just shook my head weakly. Later that night, back in the hotel room, reviewing the application documents, something clicked. A loose end I'd forgotten. I curled up on the chair, hugging my knees, watching Julian tap away at his laptop, engrossed in some coding problem. "Hey," I began slowly. "How would my mother even know about the confession wall stuff? And those chat logs? How would a random student get access to private messages like that?" Julian looked up, pausing his typing. He leaned back, regarding me with a knowing look. "Took you long enough to ask. You investigated?" A smug expression crossed his face. "Your roommate Vanessa wasn't as clever as she thought. Used a public computer at an internet cafe near campus, tracked the IP, bribed the owner for the security footage, hacked her account to confirm." He arched an eyebrow, clearly pleased with himself. "Oh, so why didn't you help me clear my name then? Expose her?" Julian looked genuinely surprised. "You wanted my help?" Seeing his expression, I understood. I slid off the chair, walked over and wrapped my arms around his neck, kissing his cheek. No, he knew me well enough to know I preferred handling my own battles. Julian pulled me onto his lap, burying his face in my hair, his kiss trailing down my neck. His voice was a low growl against my skin. "Besides, who were you to me then? My cheating ex-girlfriend? Why would I lift a finger to help you?" I squirmed slightly, feeling a little guilty. I didn't cheat. Well, maybe just a tiny bit green. Within acceptable limits. My weak defense only seemed to amuse him further. He laughed, a low, dangerous sound, before effectively silencing any further protests. Back at university, Vanessa was predictably not in the dorm. Armed with the address of her off-campus rental from Chloe, I paid her a visit. She looked shocked to see me standing on her doorstep. I walked past her into the small apartment, pulled out my phone, and displayed the evidence Julian had gathered: screenshots, logs, security footage, stills. "This is invasion of privacy, defamation, slander. If I reported this, what do you think would happen?" Vanessa immediately crumpled, tears streaming down her face. Typical bully, all bluster, no backbone. The sight was more irritating than pitiable. "Stop crying," I said sharply. "I'm not going to feel sorry for you. It's been weeks. I can't be bothered dragging this out. Just log into your account right now and post a clarification on the confession wall." She seemed stunned by my leniency, nodding frantically. People usually didn't need a logical reason to dislike someone. I didn't care enough to ask why she'd done it. I turned to leave, however, perhaps out of guilt or maybe just to deflect blame. Vanessa mumbled, "It wasn't me who sent the stuff to your mother. It was Yvonne Jiang." Closing the door behind me, I paused. Yvonne, Julian's persistent admirer. So she tried to sabotage me on two fronts. Interesting. I quickly sent a text to Julian updating him. Naive girl, I thought with a smirk. Did she really think undermining me would win Julian over? He clearly only had eyes for me. Knowing Julian's temper, I felt a flicker of malicious satisfaction imagining how he'd deal with Yvonne. Serves her right. Hadn't I endured his moods too? Let her get a taste. Feeling oddly relaxed, I strolled back towards campus, only to run straight into Leo. His face lit up when he saw me. "Sister, coming out tonight? There's a new bar that just opened nearby. Let's check it out." I hesitated, about to refuse, but I didn't really have other plans. Okay, why not? Places Leo frequented were always filled with pretty girls. I scanned the crowd as we settled into a booth, feeling a familiar, almost automatic assessment click in. Leo leaned closer conspiratorially. "None of them are as beautiful as sister, though." It was true, but hearing it still made me smile. Flattery always worked. Perhaps because I knew Julian and I were solid now, I felt more secure, less inclined to play games. When the inevitable truth or dare round came up later, and I was dared to share a pocky stick mouth-to-mouth with Leo, I declined firmly, opting for the 3 penalty shots instead before curling up defensively on the sofa. Leo slid closer, his expression mimicking hurt, his voice soft and wheedling. "Why did sister refuse? You broke my heart." I rested my cheek against the back of my hand, smiling slightly. "I have a boyfriend now. He gets jealous." Leo looked genuinely taken aback, then sighed dramatically. "Ah, so sister has a boyfriend again already? Who's the lucky guy?" Before I could answer, a shadow fell over our booth. I looked up. Julian stood there, looming over us, his face a thundercloud. "Out!" he commanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Realizing how cozy Leo and I must have looked huddled together, a wave of guilt washed over me. I quickly grabbed my bag, made hasty goodbyes, and followed Julian out of the bar. I reached for his hand, but he kept his arm stiffly at his side, refusing the contact. My heart sank. "What's wrong?" I asked defensively. "I didn't do anything." Julian finally stopped, turning to face me, yanking his hand free to cup my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. "And if you had done something," he asked softly, menacingly, "do you think you'd still be standing here? Where else would I be?" I challenged, though my voice lacked conviction. A humorless smirk touched his lips. His eyes flickered meaningfully towards the hotel across the street. I immediately shut my mouth. He took my hand then, his grip possessive, and started walking back towards the university, his anger seemingly dissipating slightly. "So, I'm dealing with Yvonne back on campus, and you're out playing with Leo?" Okay, phrased like that, it did sound bad. "It won't happen again," I promised, squeezing his hand, leaning against his arm. A reluctant smile finally touched his lips. "It's not like I'm forbidding you from having fun. But it's better if you don't." The unspoken addendum hung in the air. That was fine. Honestly, being with Julian was all the fun I needed.